president's Republican allies are standing by his false claims about the election. And although courts have shot down dozens of lawsuits seeking to overturn the election, Senator Josh Hawley is digging his heels in and saying his objection to the election is legitimate. Now, protesters in St. Louis are calling on their freshman senator to resign, and his colleagues in Congress have condemned his actions and rhetoric. NBCNews.com political reporter and fact-checker extraordinaire Jane Tim joins us now. Jane, good morning. Thanks for being here. Your latest piece for NBCNews.com analyzes how the president's false claims about election fraud incited the riot and the fact that GOP allies are still giving the argument oxygen. Tell us more about your reporting and what's in this piece here.
Absolutely. So the thing that really surprised me when I went back into the Congress and we started counting these votes again is that I was still hearing voter fraud lies again and again. I mean, Senator Kelly Loeffler, whose political career is arguably over right now, was still saying there's irregularities in the election. Josh Hawley, in the same breath almost that he was saying we have to condemn the violence, he was saying we have to investigate fraud. Now, these are the baseless claims that really got us here. There have been numerous investigations, numerous audits and recounts, and this was a really secure election, like an amazingly so secure election. And we just keep hearing the idea that these sort of smaller ideas, they're maybe the more polite lies about voter fraud, but they're the ones that got us here, because we would not have believed these Donald Trump's sort of wild claims if we hadn't been talking about voter fraud for 20 years.
Now, let's talk a little bit about this idea of this going back 20 years now. Your story also covers how the opportunity to convince Trump voters the election was fraudulent was, as you just mentioned, decades in the making. And now, again, there's no evidence of fraud. We've seen these lawsuits shot down. So can you tell us how this goes back to the 2000 presidential election? What happened then? What's been happening over these last 20 years that have made this something that these were people were sort of primed for?
So 2020, as Mitch McConnell says, was not all that close an election, but 2000 was very, very close. Hundreds of votes decided this election. Obviously, it took us almost a month to figure out who was going to win the election. But that's where people started to realize politically that turnout was really, really important, and that who was able to get to the ballot box and whose votes were counted was actually really important. And you start seeing conspiracy theories stem out of this really close election. Because, of course, when it's a couple hundred votes that decide it, their imaginations start going wild. But we started seeing the idea that, oh, maybe there was voter fraud and maybe we need to secure the vote and maybe felons voted in Florida. That was one of the ones that popped up. And we've been hearing that for ages. That we started seeing these claims come through. By 2008, voter fraud was a common thing. There were campaign ads about it. Senator John McCain talked about a rigged election, essentially. But by 2016, when Donald Trump took office, 52% of Republicans believed that voter fraud was a major problem, according to Gallup. So they were ready to believe this.
So now, Jane, let's look forward. If they don't back off these election fraud lies, how does that play out in the next election? We have Hawley and Senator Ted Cruz, both of whom are widely believed to be potentially running for president in 2024. If we have people like them who are still on these, what's that going to mean 4 years from now?
You know, it sets the stage for us to have this conversation again and again and again, and to contest elections and to not believe them. I think it makes the opportunity ripe for more violence. If people believe that an election was stolen, people are going to be really, really upset. And it also creates the opportunity for us to be farther and farther apart about the basic facts that govern our democracy. These are important ones, but there are other conspiracy theories that are going to take hold once one is so firmly in our psyche.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.